me for tonight's Rumble are Horace Cooper, attorney and senior fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research, and Valerie Irvin, senior advisor to the Working Families Party. Thank you both for being with us tonight. It's great to have you. So, amid reports that the Justice Department was preparing a case against him, Attorney General Jeff Sessions confirmed Thursday that arresting WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is a priority.
We are going to step up our effort, and already are stepping up our efforts on all leaks. This is a matter that's gone beyond anything I'm aware of. We have professionals that have been at the security business of the United States for many years that are shocked by the number of leaks, and some of them are quite serious. So yes, it is a priority.
So is the New York Times next? It appears so. Here's Jeff Sessions this morning on CNN.
Should folks be concerned that this would also open up news organizations like CNN or the New York Times to prosecution?
That's speculative, and I'm not able to comment on that.
Right. So Horace and Valerie, I mean, both the New York Times and the Washington Post, not unlike many papers, have a little spot on their website where, hey, if you want to leak something to us, if you want to give it to us anonymously, here's a way to do it, which is identical to what WikiLeaks is doing, or very similar to what WikiLeaks is doing. Presumably it would be processed somewhat differently. But is this not an existential threat to journalism, and shouldn't we be protecting acts of journalism rather than just journalists, which is typically the place where people like Jeff Sessions goes? Valerie, your thoughts?
This is chilling to me. I mean, first of all, the whole Julian Assange story is just pretty extraordinary. For 6 years, you know, he's trying to keep himself from going to jail by staying in the embassy. He was simply a whistleblower doing his job in a free press. And so I think that the Trump administration is chomping at the bit to go after CNN and to go after the New York Times. And I think this is going to put a chill on the free press as we know it if they're able to get Julian Assange and bring him to the U.S.
Yeah, truth be told, Horace, the Obama administration was probably just as enthusiastic about nailing this guy.
More so, and in fact, they set the precedent of how a government can go about prosecuting or investigating individuals who are reporters or journalists, etc. To your point, I am sympathetic and quite much in favor of the idea that news organizations should be able to receive tips and other information, even if they do so anonymously. What I am not in favor of is that we break out national security protected information from people who are not lawfully allowed to disclose it, and that those people act as the leakers. Now, we need to find a middle ground. During the Obama administration, it might have been a good time to have this conversation about where these limits ought to be. No one wanted to have those conversations then. Now the chickens are coming home to roost. Suddenly we're having this chilling effect.
Well, you kind of got one end of the spectrum being the Pentagon Papers, which went all the way to the Supreme Court, and Daniel Ellsberg actually won, and the New York Times, that they had the right to publish this, even though it was highly classified information. And on the other hand, you've got you know, for example, the Bradley or the Chelsea Manning revelations via WikiLeaks, and others. You know, what's his name? Who's in Russia right now?
Yes.
Yeah, you lost his name too.
Yeah.
Snowden. Snowden.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, all of us had a brain fart at the same moment. So I'm reassured. In any case, on the other end, you've got you know, a massive amount of information that was distributed, I think in both cases, both the Manning information and the Snowden information was distributed by WikiLeaks through news organizations. So there was some attempt to, it seems, to be responsible here. The third option would be just dumping the raw stuff into the world. Here's what's came in, here's what's going out. To the best of my knowledge, no one has done that so far. But isn't that the kind of the realm where perhaps your argument of prosecution?
Well,
I actually
absolutely.
like your argument very, very much about now we're in a space and time where we should be having these conversations about, like, where do we draw the line?
Right.
And I really like your analysis, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to sort of underscore what you were saying.
And I want to make
Rare
sure
praise from a liberal here.
we can all have a common ground on
We're all
the First
Americans
Amendment. Yes. And that's actually the issue I want to get to is we'd like to get some sense of who actually is getting this information. During the last administration, we had a crackdown on whistleblowers that was unprecedented, the number of prosecutions that took place, and there was very little concern expressed about that. So this administration is going to rely on that precedent.
Yeah, yeah, and I was very concerned about that too. We had John Kiriakou on this program and others. It seemed to me like we'd crossed some not quite defined line, and that it was going to be very difficult to go back. We'll see where this goes. As activists prepare for Earth Day this weekend and the Science March on Saturday, Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards has declared a state of emergency over his state's vanishing coastline. Thanks to erosion and rising sea levels, a direct result of climate change, Louisiana is now losing as much as a football field of land every hour. How many people have to die or lose their homes before Republicans realize that climate change is an actual issue?
I think all the Republicans in Congress, including the president, should get on an airplane and fly out to Louisiana and take a look at what was there and what's vanishing before our eyes. Not just in Louisiana, but a whole lot of other coastal states. I know I have friends in Florida that talk about this every day, how the water table's rising and more people have to move further and further inland. So it's a national problem for people who live near the coast. And it's discussed every single day. I was just recently in Louisiana, and it's really scary to see all this land just like underwater, going underwater. Yes.
Well, I'm going to take a different view of this. This is mostly a West Coast and an East Coast political concern. If, in fact, that this particular issue,
rise, you mean?
No, if in fact, that's just where liberals congregate. If in fact,
Wait a minute, are you saying science facts have politics?
Of course that's true, but that's a conversation for another time. If in fact,
So science facts are liberal and science made up fiction is conservative. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
really?
Look, I'm not going to get into that conversation right this moment, but I will tell you this.
Sounds like the basis of your argument.
If Louisiana is serious about the claims being made and this $50 billion slush fund is something that they plan to pay for with their own funds, or at least a large percentage of it, then it will get the attention of the rest of the country. But since it's most likely the case that they're going to drop this idea because of the costs are so high, and if they don't drop it, that this Democrat governor is not going to successfully be reelected, we'll get a Republican governor there working with the Republican legislature, and suddenly this whole problem that you're talking about tonight is not going to be declared a national disaster. That's politics. Now you tell me.
Well, you've got a Republican mayor of Palm Beach, or excuse me, Miami Beach in Florida. The Republican governor is supervising lifting the storm drains, lifting the roads, putting in pumps. I mean, you know, they're getting, you know, daily tides over streets that 30 years ago were always dry.
If nothing else, Republicans do care in their cities and their towns about the costs of flooding.
To the degree that this issue is serious,
at least they care about that.
To the degree that the issue is serious, local concerns are going to bring resources to bear, and as the rest of the country watches, they will decide.
So the local organizations are having to pay the price for the profits that were made by Koch Industries and ExxonMobil.
Louisiana was on the forefront of oil and gas extraction. So
yeah. Well, okay, so it's karma. All right, I'll buy that. Donald Trump began the process of dismantling the Dodd-Frank financial protection laws today, issuing an executive order that would direct the Treasury Department to review its oversight of banks deemed too big to fail. So another day, another circus show from Trump. Isn't this just his way of making it seem like he's doing something? He also issued an order today aimed at reviewing taxes that, quote, pose unnecessary burdens on taxpayers. Reports suggest that this is used to stop the Obama rules against inversions, American companies moving to Ireland, for example. So we have just a minute left. Very quick.
Companies want to leave our jurisdiction because our regulations and our tax policies are too restrictive. And you're not going to change that until you change the regulatory and the tax restrictions.
You think the regulations and taxes in the EU are lower?
Just really quickly, the only reason that Trump has to resort to these executive orders is because he hasn't done anything else. So if he's trying to talk to the people who voted for him, this is the way he's showing that he's actually doing something.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, Congress has passed 2 pieces of legislation. One makes it easier for employers to steal from their employees. Actually, 3. The second makes it easier for financial advisors to lie to you and steal your money. And the third lets coal companies dump more waste in the streams. These are the only 3 pieces.
The Congressional Review Act, the Congressional Review Act, which you're referring to, has been used successfully in this administration more than a dozen times, and it's a great thing. I was happy to work on it when I worked on Capitol
We'll see
Hill.
where it goes. Horace, Valerie, thank you both.
Thank you so much.
And now the big picture fact of the day. Scientists at the San Francisco Exploratorium have now ranked the worst ways to die. And they say that the number